Hello, my name is Randy Scamihorn, and this is the Chairman's Brief. As Chairman of the Cobb Board of Education, I have the privilege of serving as the spokesperson for the Cobb School Board. The school board, together with our staff, students, parents, and community, make up our team, striving for our common goal, student success. Our school district has 112 schools, and 17 of those are high schools, with an average population of over 2,000 students and staff, typically between 100 and 200 people. That's a bigger population than many small towns in Georgia. Someone has to make sure things stay on track. That someone is our high school principals. Principal Nathan Stark from Kennesaw Mountain High School joins us today to share his experiences. Thanks for being here, Nathan.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Scamihorn.
Well, you're welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a proud graduate of Cobb County Schools. This is my 20th year now working for the district, 10th as an administrator. Said I'd never be a teacher, said I'd never be an administrator, said I'd never be a principal, but here I am. So I try not to say anymore that I'm not going to do something because it appears it may happen.
And that's destiny or karma coming after you, isn't it?
No doubt, no doubt.
Well, where did you go to get your bachelor's degree, master's degree?
So I got my bachelor's degree from KSU in math education. Started teaching in Cobb County at Wheeler High School, which was also my alma mater. So went back there as a teacher after being a student there. Got a master's degree from Troy University in instructional technology, and then my specialist from West Georgia in educational leadership.
Okay. In grade school, middle school, or whatever, what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up? And then when did you know you wanted to be a teacher?
Yeah, so grade school, middle school, high school, I thought I was going to be a sports broadcaster. Just had a passion for sports and liked the idea of being on TV. So here I am today, you know. But then went to Georgia Tech actually for a year to study computer engineering. And through a series of circumstances realized that I wanted to be working with students and enjoyed that opportunity and the opportunity to teach. And so then transferred back to KSU to get my math education degree.
Did other teachers or any of your teachers influence that, or did you talk to them, or how did that come about?
Certainly had a variety of teachers that I had prior to that I was working with in various aspects, you know, to get those opportunities to be working with students to make me realize that that's really what I wanted to do. And, you know, kind of the funniest story there is when I went to go tell my parents I was going to leave Georgia Tech and go study education, my mom said, "You're going to make bulletin boards?" And I was like, well, I got two younger sisters that can help me out with that, hopefully.
So being a high school principal is a bit like being a mayor of a small town in many ways. What are the challenges you face in keeping things running smoothly?
So I think the key is you just have so many stakeholders in a high school. You talked about the average being almost 2,000 students, and we have about 180 staff members at Kennesaw Mountain. And so it's just making sure that all the aspects of the total program, as you said, is kind of like being a mayor. So, you know, if you were a mayor, you have your public works, you have your police department, you have all kinds of other things that you're looking at. So we certainly have a focus on safety, number one, and then academics right behind that. But there are so many other things that go on at a high school, whether you're talking about clubs, athletics, arts, you throw in food service, security, you know, buildings and grounds, because our campuses are huge campuses that we have to make sure that we take care of in the right way so that they can best be utilized by our students in the community.
How big is your staff as far as like administrators?
Yeah, so in our case, we have 4 assistant principals that work most directly with me. And then we're also a magnet program, so we have a magnet coordinator who's not officially an administrator, but still is a part of our admin team in helping to administrate the things that go on at the school.
Well, that's not that many people because you have to deal with discipline as well as schedules. And I assume they help you with the business end of the school?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really important is, number one, having a good team, and I have a great team of assistant principals, and then making sure that they're very clear on what their roles are, because not everybody's going to be an athletic director, not everybody's going to be a scheduler, and so making sure that they're working out of their strengths, really, in the areas that they have the most knowledge at and the most skill in, to help bring it all together for the totality of the school program.
Now you mentioned athletic director and scheduler. Those are two really complex sets of responsibilities.
So my role the 3 years prior to becoming principal was the scheduler at Kennesaw
Oh,
Mountain.
wow.
So it is, people think, oh, you just, the schedule randomly appears. At Kennesaw Mountain, we build a new schedule every year based on what the students request. So it starts kind of in the spring with us collecting from teachers their recommendations on what core classes students should take the next year, and then giving students an opportunity to pick their electives for next year, and then we hire based on that, and we build a completely new master schedule around that to try to make sure students can get into the right classes. And then that person works a lot of the summer. Then there's a computer software that helps, but certainly never schedules students 100% in all the classes they requested. So that person works through changes, whether a student fails a class or maybe passes a class and already has credit for something, to make sure students get in the right spot. And it's just, it really is a full-time year-round job, because when you finish fall semester, now you're starting to look to spring semester to make sure everything's put together well for that semester. And then when you finish spring semester, you're starting to get those recommendations again for the following school year to make sure that we have the right people and the right schedule in place to benefit as many of our students as is possible based on their requests.
Well, each fall schedule, too, you get a totally new group of people coming from various middle schools.
Absolutely. And we do have an administrator that's the lead scheduler, but then all of our counselors work alongside that person, throughout the 4 years of school, but especially with the seniors, to make sure they have exactly what they need on that schedule to make sure that they're going to graduate on time.
Now, how do we get parents involved in helping us make sure that their interest in child or children make it through?
It's kind of challenging for high school parents because it's a different time, and each level has its own challenges. My students I have 3 children. They're in elementary and middle school still, so I have not experienced high school as a parent yet. But I think there's kind of a view sometimes that by the time they get to high school, they're independent and can do everything on their own. And while they should be more independent, there's certainly, I think, a role for parents to play as advisors still. When they leave their houses, whether that's to go on to a career or to college, a parent certainly has a lot less say in those decisions that are made by the students. But while they're still in high school, I think it's a great opportunity for parents to remain involved in kind of helping to suggest maybe how students handle certain situations, and instead of solving them for them, help the student to be the one to solve those problems with the parent's guidance. I also think, we talk about this a lot with our PTSA. Parents volunteer a lot in elementary and middle school, but there are still volunteer opportunities in high school as well. Obviously, in our current time with COVID, we have certain requirements that we put in place as people come to volunteer to make sure we're keeping everybody safe. But certainly, we need those parents to be just as involved in helping with various school activities that go on.
Good. Now, you briefly mentioned the AD, that's our athletic directors, and each high school has an athletic director, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what are some of the functions they do?
Obviously, we have required reports and things that we have to do with the GHSA. One of the key things is eligibility, to make sure that the students that are participating are eligible to participate at our school. That's obviously a very key thing before we put anybody out on the field. They do a lot of work with coaches with scheduling, whether that's scheduling games or whether that's scheduling how we're going to utilize our resources and facilities on campus.
We have lots of other things that have to happen too, like buses, maintenance and operations, discipline. I assume everybody pitches in discipline.
Yeah. So there's so many other things. We have recovery programs for students that are struggling in their classes, so that we can find the best way to help support them academically and make sure that they have the opportunity to be successful. There's an administrator that supervises those programs. I have an administrator. Yes, all the administrators do discipline. Ours is split by grade level, but we also have an administrator that handles some of the bigger discipline cases that may come up at our school. Professional learning is something that a lot of people don't think about. We have an administrator who handles all of our professional learning, helps develop or find staff that are best equipped to present to the staff to help grow their knowledge so that they can become better at what they do in and out of the classroom. And then events, we host proms, we host homecoming dances and all kinds of other events, and so administrators have to be involved in the planning for those as well.
When you first started as principal, What was the biggest challenge comes to mind right now?
Yeah. So I'd say the biggest thing that was surprising was, as an administrator, as an assistant principal, we kind of talked about it. You have kind of your lane, so to speak, where you know what your responsibilities are. As the principal, you oversee all of those responsibilities.
We were just talking about
all
lanes.
those things, yes. So instead of being the one doing in those lanes, now you become a little bit more of a supervisor, a little bit more of an advisor to your folks that are working in those lanes. And so you have to make sure you have really good communication. But that was really, having worked in a lot of those lanes, I was never an athletic director, but I did coach in Cobb for 8 years. So I knew about the athletic sides of things and booster clubs. But you have to supervise and make sure that you are aware of the possible the things going on in all those lanes, and help provide good guidance to your assistant principals so they can carry out what the vision is for the school. One of the important things to me is for my staff to realize that hopefully I still understand, even though I'm not in the classroom on a day-to-day basis, I still understand maybe some of their struggles and what they're working on to improve. And a great example of that was last year when we rolled out CTLS. We had the great opportunity to have 3 weeks of pre-planning so that staff could really dig into that system and learn it, so that when we began the school year, they knew how to operate and use the system. And so I did all the trainings right alongside with them. Now I'm a technology guy, but so that was a little bit easier for me. But I wanted to make sure I had knowledge of how the system works. So when they had questions, when they said, I'm trying to do this, do you have any ideas how I could do that? I could provide some suggestions that really helped them. And so I think kind of getting in with your staff helps with that motivation piece, that they know that you have an understanding of what they're doing, and can provide valuable suggestions versus maybe some things that are off the wall if you don't have that connection. And I think the other thing is being a good delegator. And making sure it's clear to people what your expectations are when you delegate, so that they aren't going, well, is this what he wanted? Is this what he wanted? In some cases, I may give you full authority when I delegate to you. You don't need to report back to me and tell me what you decided on. In other cases, I certainly want to know what decision was made so that I can kind of have a little bit of feedback in that process and make sure that it was the right decision.
Well, as a third-year principal, and one of the things that I look forward to talking with you is about, because you are still relatively a new principal, and I know our new principals get mentors and other folks to help them. Is that true?
Yes, sir. So I was given another high school principal as a mentor, and we met throughout that first year. And I still call that person from time to time when I get something that I'm like, I wonder how I should handle this scenario. And it's great because that's a no judgment thing. That person's not a supervisor of mine. Yeah. They're not running to my supervisors. It's just an opportunity to really, somebody that has some experience, but to be able to get some feedback that's very valuable.
Well, because you are still relatively new, I want to ask you, do you still recall, and maybe you will always recall, the very first day of school when you walked in and, hey, I'm in charge of this large, well-run, academically highly performing high school? Do you recall that day?
Yeah, first day of school, fall of 2019. Just walking in and on the way in, like, wow, like, the buck stops with me in the end in this building, with all these students that are about to come in the door. So it's certainly not a responsibility that I take lightly. It's something that's very important to do well for our students and our staff, to make sure that we give them the best experience throughout high school that we possibly can.
This past year, I believe our retention rate was around 97.5%. Am I correct on that?
I don't know the exact percentage, but I'll tell you, we had a very high retention rate at our school. Our staff did a great job with that, and I think, knowing that they're a partner with parents, like if it can be a partnership, I think that goes a long way in helping teachers to be satisfied, in terms of the role that they're playing with students. And they want to hear the good too. Is something else I would share. When your student really loves a teacher, please reach out and let them know, that they've impacted your student, because they don't always hear those stories. One of the things I try to do, I'll get emails from parents that are sent to me about good things our staff is doing. So I always make sure I forward those on to the student or to the teacher. And then I also ask the parents' permission to share it in a staff meeting so that those staff members can be recognized in front of their peers. A happy teacher oftentimes makes for happy students too.
Oh, so. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we've heard recently about the importance of community involvement. How is your school's community involved in helping your students succeed?
Yeah. So I think there's two big ways at Kennesaw Mountain, and I'm actually going to flip the question for one of the ways.
Okay.
One of the things that we're very proud of at Kennesaw Mountain, I think a lot of the Cobb high schools would say the same thing, our students are very engaged in the community. In a typical year, we do something, and obviously the past few years have been atypical, but in a typical year, we've had almost 30,000 hours of community service done by our students in a given year. And so our students engage with the community to help grow those skills that we talked about that may not be academic skills, but to give them opportunities to experience things that they might not experience and to help the community. At the same time, the community turns around and helps us. We do character education at our school once a month. And one of the things that we do is we bring in outside mentors from the community in a normal time, again, outside of COVID. We bring in mentors from outside the community, people that are willing to come in and help lead those character ed lessons, because that, again, helps the community to come in and get to know who we are as a school. It provides us a service from the community and really being able to help our kids grow and learn. And sometimes, you know, an expert is someone that lives a mile down the road. So when they hear it from a teacher that they've had, or maybe their homeroom teacher, it may not strike them as much as when they have an outside community member come in to help out. And I'll just say our community is really great. We do a lot of big events like Shop with a Mustang, the dance in the spring, and our community just comes alongside us and partners with us in great ways for those events as well.
What are the ways that parents can be involved? You mentioned band parents. What are other things that the parents can do?
Yeah, so most of the programs we have going on have parents that help out with things. Band parents are obviously a big one on a Friday night. There are parents involved in so many aspects. You know, a lot of these groups have booster clubs where parents serve as a president, you know, a vice president, a treasurer, or secretary within the booster club. But all of these groups are looking for volunteers to help, you know, whether that be with fundraising, because a lot of these programs are self-sufficient as well, or whether that's, you know, working events to help make sure they go off as well as they can.
Okay. Do you have is it called a school council?
It's called a Principals Advisory Council.
Principal Advisory Council.
And we used to do school councils, and we've recently changed to Principal Advisory Councils. But that's something we meet with multiple times throughout the year. Again, some agendas are set with specific things we want to talk about and provide them information about, maybe about the school budget, maybe about how we utilize resources in the building. You know, it could be about how we're communicating. Are we communicating well? Are we communicating in the ways you want us to communicate? You know, what could we do to improve in various aspects of the school? And so those groups we meet with on a regular basis.
And you made me think of another part that's related to the parents, because some of them may own their own businesses, but we have a program called Partners in Ed for business owners that are watching. They could get involved too. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Schools are always looking for partners in ed, and our goal is to hopefully, as a partner in ed, each build each other up in some ways. You know, we can provide obviously opportunities for your business, and then businesses certainly pour back into the schools and help us out.
What is the most fulfilling or exciting part of your job? And that may be two separate things, and it may be the same. So what comes to mind?
I think it was funny because due to COVID, I missed my first graduation as the principal. So I didn't get to be on that stage shaking hands as they came across. But this past May, when I had the opportunity to do that, I'd say that's probably the most fulfilling, is seeing students that you know your staff has poured into, and we as a school have poured into for four years, be successful in terms of having that diploma and walking across the stage. I think the part of my job that I enjoy the most is when I do get back into classrooms, because I'm still a teacher at heart. And so getting to see that moment when I'm visiting a classroom and something just clicks for a student and they get it, and that excitement that they have that, hey, I did something that I wasn't sure about at first, but now I have this knowledge and I've proven I can do it. That's a really neat thing to see.
Good. Is there anything you'd like to add that comes to mind with all the things that we've talked about?
I think the thing is, it feels like in some ways our high schools are 24/7 operations. They're not truly 24, but they're pretty much 7. There's something going on at your local high school all the time. So whether you're a parent or a student or even a community member, you know, check something out that's going on at your high school so that you have an opportunity to really see the great things that are going on at our schools in Cobb County.
Okay. Well, you've done an excellent job with things at Kennesaw Mountain, and I know we have lots of other dedicated principals just like you at every level. Thanks for being here, Nathan, and thank you for watching. Next time you see a principal, Thank them for the work they do every day on behalf of our students and families. Be sure to join me again next week to discuss some of the great things happening in Cobb County School District. Have a good day.